Namaskarams and a very good morning to all of you present here. On behalf of the Fine Arts Society, I extend a very warm welcome to each one of you. Today we have gathered to listen to a lecture demonstration by Padma Shri Awardee Guru Srimati Chitra Visweswaran ji. And the topic she covers is Dance and Allied Arts, a Symbiotic Relationship. I'm sure each one of us are eagerly waiting to listen to her great doyen of Bharatnatyam. And I now welcome Chitra ji to the stage. Let us hear a huge roar of applause. Welcome, Chitra ji. Before we begin, I request Srimati Radhika Anant Kumar ji, the President of the Managing Committee, and Srimati Janaki Ramakrishnan, the Secretary of the Board of Trustees, to kindly come up on the stage to honor the art, honor Chitra ji. Yeah. I request Janaki ji to honor her with a stole. And Radhika ji with a memento. Thank you. The stage is yours, Chitra ji.
दक्षिणामूर्ति समारंभाम शंकराचार्य मध्यमाम अस्मत् आचार्य पर्यंताम वंदे गुरु परंपराम ओम नमो भगवते मुत्तकृष्णाय. My relationship with Chembur Fine Arts is a very long one. It has stood the test of time, one can say, because the bonding is as strong as it was in the very, very beginning. When I say long back, I remember the days I used to come and dance in the Maidan, in the festival. And I still remember, I had just choreographed the Nyasi Varnam, Ye Mogu Bodhinchara. And I presented that in Chembur Fine Arts first. I've always looked forward to the performances here, and later in the hall, solos, groups, productions, and the latest that we presented was with music by your very own Bombay Shri. Meera, through Meera's own lyrics. That was the last production we presented here. And it gives me great pleasure to be here today. When Radhika asked me whether I would be agreeable to presenting more a lecture, less a demonstration at my age, I said, of course I would, impulsively. But sometimes, you're very impulsive and then you wonder, would I be up to it because of various other factors. Anyhow, here I am. And the subject is, as far as to the depth of my, I would say, limited knowledge, a subject which is very essential for all serious-minded dance practitioners to follow. We are now at a time, and had been in this time for some space, where dancers don't go and listen to music concerts. Musicians don't come for dance. Theatre people never turn our way, and we do not go and enjoy theatre. How many dancers, I'll contain myself to dancers now, go to study paintings in exhibitions. When they tour, are they only bothered about the venue and their texts and their tech rehearsals and their performances, or do they go from culture to culture, discovering the art of that particular ethos, that particular people? What about sculpture? There's so much to look beyond the wondrous sculpture we have in this country, because we never know where inspiration can lie, where the tapping of the seeing eye and the hearing ear will happen, where our Anandamaya Kosha will be tapped. Because as practitioners, we all realize one thing. Even though the Westerners say we are very, very bad in documentation, maybe more recently since they took over, we have lost that. But earlier, look at the documentations in our Lakshana Granthas. See the documentation through sculpture. See the documentation through murals. Everything aspect has been documented. And one thing that I have always felt after going through the fund of knowledge, information aplenty. Knowledge is the essence of information, and there is so much of that itself. When one goes over the historical past, one sees the political situation, you understand the chronological order, you understand the religious situation, you delve into the philosophical depth. You realize everything has to be studied in context. Everything is contextual. Why was that done at that particular time depends entirely upon contextual references. As serious-minded dance practitioners, we need to understand. Otherwise, it's just lip service. It's just learning by rote. It is not looking beyond. But one thing that I did understand, that the only constant in our tradition has been change. Change without losing the spirit of our Bharatiya Samskriti. Because Bharatvarsha has always been inclusive, like our Sanatana Dharma is. And if we go back to that, we imbibe so much from everything around. If we desire to search, if we desire to look, if we strive to find a greater purpose. Because what is the point of all these finite studies if it doesn't link us with the infinite? And that is the purpose of the arts in India. Each genre in itself, the allied art forms. When we talk, oops, oh, that was the water bottle. It's okay. The allied art forms, each one is as limitless as the sky, as deep as the ocean, as wide as the horizon. It's like Tiruvannamalai, the flame that represents Shivalinga. Adiyam kaana mudiyadu, antamam kaana mudiyadu. And that is the nature of each genre that is there, and in practice has been there for so many generations, so many centuries from time immemorial. To go into each one in detail, you could learn it from textbooks. You could learn the details from textbooks, from tomes that are there, from now with a click, everything is online. I myself study my Natya Shastra online. If I want a reference, because my Natya Shastra is like what we call Adirasa Vallar. It's like breaking. It was one of the last printed copies. So I need to keep it safe. So everything is available with meanings. You can use our brains and study it and try to study interpretations. Go to a guide when you can't find it. But what I'm going to do here today is to share with you all my own simple journey, my very fulfilling journey, and share with you all what I have taken from these allied art forms to make my dance what it is today. Because dance is not a physical discipline alone. It is mental, it is intellectual, it is emotional, and its highest is spiritual. Now, how far can you push without losing the spirit of Bharatanatyam? It's very easy to totally cut, copy, paste something and put it into your production. But is it your own? Have you chewed on it? Have you swallowed? Have you digested and made it part of yourself? Has the osmosis happened? Has it become your own? There's no point. If it's just there as a cut, copy, paste, then everybody would be remembered, not just a few exceptional ones in different genres. I came from a very different background, very much like many of you here, different for Chennai, because most dancers in Chennai would learn Bharatanatyam and would learn Carnatic music. Maximum they would also learn Kuchipudi because Vempati Chinna Satyam were there. But I came from, and they had a different battle to fight, and they had to establish, they had to, great Natvanas created fresh young dancers, and they were performing and earning so much respect for the art form that I was from Calcutta, and I learned not Bharatanatyam alone, Manipuri, Kathak, Rabindra Nritya, Carnatic music from Nataraja Bhagavatar and Calcutta Krishnamurti, and Robindro Shongit, besides Robindro Nritya. I've also been in theatre in Calcutta, which is very advanced, even as it is in Maharashtra. I studied lighting with Tapush Sen, and I have always had this total fascination for nature because of the Rabindraic influence upon me. It was more, their worship was more of nature, and that really seeped a lot into me, and that sort of became my sort of way of life. And there I studied under Bharatanatyam, under one of the most unique dancers of the Kuppaya Natunar Parampara. My guru, Srimati T.A. Rajalakshmi, who taught me for 10 years without any compromise, was a Devadasi. And she taught me such pure, traditional Bharatanatyam. I am so grateful because my foundation is so strong. So whatever I build will not shake. And she used to say, "Enakku compose lam panna theriyadappa." Those days, they only use the word compose, not choreograph. Compose lam panna theriyadappa. Ana enakku en vaadiyar enna solli kodutaro appadiye adu solli kodukuren. I do not know how many youngsters here understand the value of that sentence. Because to receive undiluted a parampara is a big blessing. And with my scholarship, I went to the radical, revolutionary, visionary Varu Ramya Pillai. It was from swinging to the other approach totally, but so fulfilling, an experience which further opened my eyes and my ears and made my voyage of discovery meaningful. Having said that, I will quickly go through parallels. The paths will crisscross, because one thing that always puzzled me even as a youngster is when Bharata in his Natya Shastra gave us a documentation on what was there. Everything was part of a whole. Why is everything become so separate today? As I mourn the fact that dancers don't go to music concerts, musicians don't go to theatre. But Bharata says everything was part of a whole. And yes, I do understand that just as there are streams of specialization, and you have specialties in any subject, the specialization will develop. But that doesn't mean we need to really forget what the spirit of art has been in our country. And it is not just art, it is the way the Sanatani looks at life. That's how it is. So I was always wanted to work towards enriching myself from the different genres, which I was sure could enrich me in many ways. The most obvious parallel from which we take a lot, and we hope we give a lot also to musicians who are sensitive, is music. Because, really sensitive musicians for dance enjoy the dance a lot. Even as a really sensitive dancer should enjoy the music. Yes, we've all heard dance is music of the body. And okay, let's elaborate. Music is dance of the soul for syllables. Okay, but how does it happen? Does it happen? Is it just enjoying it and appreciating it? How do you make it part of your being? I'm not saying dance. Because for a dancer, dance is the entire being, within, without. Every breath you take is a beautiful experience which makes you sprout wings and fly and makes that handshake with the infinite possible. So dance and music, yes, as you all know, we have the music which was created just for dance, like the Margam of Tanjavur Quartet. You have other pieces which have been included, like the Trinity, into the dance repertoire. We have, especially today, many dancers researching and finding different texts and tuning them and presenting productions. But again, contextual. This was 1970s. In 1970s, it was not very common for instance, a Trinity to be done in Bharatanatyam. Maybe just a few, like Kalyana Sundar Nattuvanar and Adiyar Lakshman in the south. They were a few who would take these compositions and do them. But at that time itself, with the search, complete performances of Trinity compositions way back late 70s, early 80s. So it was discovering the richness of music and how this could enrich my journey. Then again, using compositions of, we've all heard of Uttakada Venkat Subbayar, we all know his Alaipayude, we all know his Kuraludam, but how many have worked on the Saptaratnas of Uttakada Venkat Subbayar, which are a precursor to the Pancharatnas of Tyagaraja. But the Pancharatnas have been worked upon and had at that time been worked upon in dance by my gurus. But that was what indicated that I could look further, and I started presenting Venkata Kavi's Saptaratnas through dance. Of course, at every point you will be criticized. இதெல்லாம் நாட்டியத்தில் பண்ணுவாளா, இதெல்லாம் நாட்டியத்துக்காக எழுதலையே, அதுக்காக உருப்படிகள் இருக்குது. என்ன நம்ம பெரியவாள்லாம் அதையே தான் பண்ணிட்டு உட்காண்டிருந்தாளா? எவ்வளவு அவள் பண்ணியிருக்கா? ஹவு மச் தே ஹவ் டுடே they are accepted as part of the traditional margam, but when they were first done they were new. And they also underwent criticism. So take strength from that. Then of course there were all these, அப்புறம் நம்ம retune பண்ணி மியூசிக்கை, and it's very important when you retune it is, and this is advice to younger dancers, we must know what we want. Unless we equip ourselves, we can't sit with the person who's tuning and say this is what I want. I'm not saying even technically equip yourself. Technically equipped is very good, but be sensitive. You have to be very, very sensitive to a situation, to the music, because what does happen is, I have known very good composers they will compose and say this in the character Kandam and the character in Rupakam, and then when they discuss together it will be Mishram. I found it impossible to even digest. I swallow. I said, why should not the choreographer or the composer of the dance have the priority of deciding what should be done? Who are you to tell me? Because and I know musicians are very sensitive. I was married to my late husband, was a great multifaceted musician. Anna, what was open about both of us is we could give and take. If I told him எனக்கு இந்த ராகம் இப்போது பிடிக்கலைன்னா, I could tell him freely. And then இதை வேணா நம்ம கண்டத்தில் ட்ரை பண்ணலாமே, I could say. Similarly, he'd tell me, you think you're doing this looks good, but I think it's very monotonous. So there has to be give and take. Doesn't matter whether it's husband and wife. With good musician, you must have the humility to understand that your dance is nothing without them. அந்த நட்டமாங்கம் நம்மளை ஸ்பேர் பண்ணலைன்னா, the vocal நம்மளை உருக்க வைக்கலைன்னா, if the மிருதங்கம் does not excite us, if the flute and veena do not soothe us, we will stay nice and sturdy. In Tamil we have it saying, I don't know how many of you know it, இடிச்ச புளி மாதிரி உட்காந்துருப்போம். அந்த ஃப்ளையும் பண்ணுவாட்டா, நம்மளும் we won't fly, nobody else will soar, and people will say Bharatanatyam is very boring. It needn't be interesting only by introducing speed and speed and lighting, till you can't even what is happening to the face of the dancer, what is that you're saying, you can't suddenly smoke for no reason. Smoke for no reason, and then suddenly there is a leap in the middle of a very sorrowful scene, and then I think about the Rasatyarya. What did they really mean? What is the rasa we are trying to play finally? So these questions, I was brought up by parents who used to tell me, if there are 4 solutions to a problem, find the 5th one, never be satisfied. So this going on questioning and going on pushing was part of my nature. Then Calcutta, in Calcutta those days, we had always chol bena. So all of us were into that sort of excitement, and we never had college for 6 months. I was very happy because I used to go to dance class and then used to go to the library. The National Library is one of the best equipped in Kolkata after Connemara Library too in Chennai. So spend hours there, very happy that Calcutta University was always on strike, because it was there. Besides studying my own subject, I studied so much about the cognate allied art forms and about dance and the text, all the Lakshana Granthas, be it the Dasharupaka, the Bharatarnamam, or the Abhinaya Sarasamputa, or the Saramsha, or the Sangeeta Ratnakara, so many, எவ்வளவு இருக்கு, and how much knowledge and how each one shows us the changes that happened. Of course, we have great artists, great intellectuals who research this and bring it all out to us. But my thirst at that time was, how can I make my body, which is the tool of expression, a holistic tool of expression? How can I work further? This is not belittling the great grammar that has been given to us by our great ones. It's not as though the wealth of what there is, of hastas, of padas, of charis, of the plavanas, of the drishtis, of the shiras, it's not as though that is not enough. But even for language, as you have grammar, and grammar can always evolve without losing the spirit of the style. So here I was seeking out, but I was very, very, very aware of the fact that what is the most important aspect of Bharatanatyam? It is its subtlety. And the subtlety, it was never overly dramatic. So when you watch theatre, or you dabble in theatre, or you participate in theatre, as I have had in my teens, if we cut, copy, paste, we just make it a dramatic, un-Bharatanatyam presentation. Then don't call it Bharatanatyam. That's all. So, we cannot become overly dramatic. Subtlety is an aesthetics. These are the underlying principles of Bharatanatyam. So how do you maintain that subtlety? And how do you yet make it reach 200 rows? Because those days, we did get a lot of crowd for dance. It's very sad that nowadays crowds for classical functions everywhere are decreasing. Krishna Gana Sabha used to be overflowing. Shanmukhananda used to be overflowing 3 floors and 2 days of performances. Other big halls like the Music Academy, the Tata Theatre, they all used to be full. And it was always my point, how do I enhance my body language to make it reach even further? Because normally we use our eyes, we use our hastas, we use certain natural body movements. But can I create something for myself which will make me reach out to the last person? So the first thing, of course, as I said, was music. Extension of repertoire comes from that, and everybody is doing so much with it now. Those days, all those experiments had just begun. And anything out of the margam was considered. It was considered blasphemy. But we had great ones who have done it, so we followed their examples. But then, what is it that I found out in relation to music? Because with all this, most of it, all of you know, and the importance of dance for music. My husband was a multifaceted musician. I was very blessed. Any time of the day or the night, we would just sit and rework, which I will share at the end. Certain things, but certain points, certain aspects, we could dare to do certain things, because if we are together, all that is much easier. It's not always like that. So, what was it that I found? I felt, we keep hearing this dance is music of the body, and music is dance of the syllables. What exactly do we say that this is? How does it happen? Did it just happen that you listen to a gamaka or briga and just move accordingly? Or could it be something deeper? Could we work it into the pedagogy itself so that you don't tell a dancer when she's ripe, react to the music, do react to the music, don't be like this, don't be wooden. But if we can find a pedagogy which will make it part of their system. So this training in my institution begins from the beginning, because I feel when a dancer dance, I discovered, it became a reality to me that I always loved great music, I knew music, but at the point of dancing, unless I become a rasika and enjoy the vocal music, enjoy the melody, enjoy the nuances of the Nattavanal Sullu and the Nattavangam, unless I enjoy every strike on the Mridangam, unless I enjoy every flute, every note on the flute, and unless I enjoyed every jaru on the veena, I could not produce jaru in my body or vocal in my body or talam in my body or anything. That's very difficult because we are taught the dance, we are taught the music. This is what happens. And then if we don't know the language that is explained to us, then we try to remember the meaning. We do it. And sincere dancers do all that. Everyone works hard at that. But then, at the point of dancing, we are so busy singing to ourselves. That is the natural habit of a human being. Even when Sudha Raghunathan or Bombay Jayashree or Sanjay are singing, I hear many people in the audience, they will be singing along with them. It's a very, very natural urge, because you hear a song you like, you sing along with it. So I found it, I worked at it, and I was able to I would know the music, I would have studied the music, I would have sung it 100 times, but when I came to stage, my mind, I would blank my mind. I'd sit in quietude for some time, my mind would be blank. So every time I listened to the music, it was something new for me. And that infused life into my dance. And each time I interpreted something, so it was my creativity was tapped because of that. And later I applied this even to, I've never danced to tape music, I belong to that generation, but when we did Meera with Jayashree's music, we worked. After Vishwesh, I was able to work with Jayashree because there was so much mutual understanding. And to be able to dance freely to it, I would each time listen to it like a fresh interpretation and blank my mind and do it. But it is an extremely difficult thing to do. And I have found it most difficult with my students who are also very good singers. Their head would be moving in a particular way which would actually be responding to the Sangadi within them and not to what was being executed. Suddenly they will be moving like body is the veena. Saraswati plays upon it. The charu is all there in the body. But then they would be moving to a very sort of trance-like. They would give a trance-like movement. It just doesn't that. So it wouldn't become as one. So in order for them to really become as one, we have a pedagogy where we go through making the youngsters learn and then forget the music while performing. And listen, not enough to forget. Listen. Carlyle talked about the seeing eyes and the hearing ears. Open them both up and be be welcome in fresh breath, welcome in fresh ideas, welcome in the great wealth which is Bharatiya Samskriti. We also, of course, use, those days it wasn't done to use North Indian ragas for Bharatanatyam. And my husband being a North Indian musician, also beside being JMB's nephew and a Carnatic musician, and through him and my stay in Kolkata, I was very, very familiar with North Indian music. We used North Indian ragas. Again criticized in the beginning, and now the whole field is using it. And I feel I feel slightly bit proud that everybody is now following a step forward, which only enriches the entire genre. Then again, experiments of tala, not just of intricacies of what mood they can create, not allow the composer in any way to subdue my own creative urge. For instance, using Mohanam for a talat. It's a Purandaradasa Mohanam, and the talat, we said, "Ayo, talat, lullaby." We immediately think of Neelambari. And can't we not do something else? So we decided, let's try Mohanam, because especially Mohanam creates certain moods. And when you hear Kuchipudi, the whole Tarangam will be in Mohanam. See Kuchipudi, you'll hear the whole Tarangam in Mohanam. So let us try Mohanam. And then Mishra Chapu, any child will sleep. Mishra Chapu, Adi Talam. Put a takata and the Kandatala 30, now which child will sleep? But he said, we'll make our child sleep. And our child was what? Dance and music. So we'll make it sleep. So we tried Kanda Chapu. And we learned, because there's nothing like hands-on experience to learn. And we learned, the discovery was that for us at that stage was, it is not the actual tala that matters. Of course, we knew raga, the treatment of the raga would help, but it is only the speed, the pace which determines the mood. So the same Kanda Chapu, which normally when Ravana comes or some anti-hero comes, we are busy saying, tam, takita, dim, takita, tum, takita, nam, takita. Casting no aspersions at anybody, but this will be a natural instinct for everybody. But ade tu gire rangana, it was so slow. So it is really, by doing such things, you also learn as an artist so many things. That adi eppadi chaukama padina in the same Kanda Chapu, it can sound like a Drupad. So just your take from that. One thing, so I'm very, very particular, and with all these experiments of expanding the repertoire, adding on ragas, talas, all these things. First little baby step out of my comfort zone. Because the comfort zone was very much an Allaribhujataswaram Shabdam Varnam Padam's Javali Tillana Vratam. That was my comfort zone. A small, tiny step out of my comfort zone, which I have developed further all along the years. So my students, those who study with me, I don't care if they don't know the difference between ragas. I insist that they all learn music, but I don't care. They don't know the difference between what is Chandrakons and Malkons. They must know what the difference in flavor is. It's only one nishadam which is different, if you look at technicality. But then, what a different mood one raga has, what a different mood the other has. Hussaini and Bhairavi. There's so many ragas we can talk about. I I don't care if they can't answer a question, what is the difference between Hussaini and Bhairavi? If they cannot answer technically, some girls can. I have one wonderful little dancer who's just that high. She's 26, but she's very bad in theory. Very, very bad in theory, in any theory. But she's a brilliant dancer, so how do you explain that? And she feels here and dances. So that, if I ask that girl a question, she won't be able to answer the technicalities of it. But is she sensitive to it? That's what matters for a dancer. You should be sensitive to music, not just when you sit in Chembur Fine Arts and listen to a kacheri, but you must be sensitive at the point of dancing with the musicians on the stage. So each time, even for us, becomes a very different experience. And each time you discover something else. Because each mridangist has his own style, each flautist has his own style, each vayanika, each singer. So it's basically only the Natwanar who is always a constant. So it is important for me because I think it is very, very important that dance music, if dance is to rise above being literature, a language, into poetry, it is necessary to empower ourselves in different ways. And the connection between these are a very nourishing, they nourish each other, nourishing experience. So there, that is an endless journey. But then here I was trying to discover my body further. Of course, the discovery of the inner me has always to be there. We have to journey inside as much as we have to journey outside. But journeying within and yet trying to keep with the spirit of Bharata. Taking, searching, researching, imbibing, creating with inspiration and knowledge you have culled from the different genres. So since the body is a tool, I looked at the entire body as a tool. The first thing that struck me was theatre. Because theatre in Kolkata, as I said, is very well developed and I've been part of it. So there is, I'll only talk about one or two concepts from theatre. Theatre has a concept called presence. Adhavde, when the character comes and stands on stage, you know what the character is because of the stance, the body stance, the way the head is held, the way the body moves. When they come and stand, you know who the character is. Of course, we can all say in Kathakali, we know which character has come, but that is because of the Vesham. You have your Pacha, you have your divine, you have your anti-hero, you have the monkey character, all different colors of makeup in those open fields at night. They just, Arjuna came, Arjuna has come. So it is, that identification is through Vesham and through the makeup. Of course, makeup is part of the Vesham. But how could I use this concept of presence and make it part of my language of Bharatanatyam? Because here I had received such a good foundation from stalwarts. Whatever I did was not in opposition to what they said, but to take forward what they had kindled in me, to take forward and make my own. So I was thinking, by that time bigger theatres had come in. Different types of theatres had come in, which I will talk to when I talk about space in theatre. We used to have the habit, whatever padam we did, whether it was a Vasika Sajjika or a Virodh Khandita or a Abhisharika, we would come and stand decently on stage and then we'd start performing. I just thought, why not? This just flashed in my mind. If I came and stood like a Khandita, even an introduction to the piece would not be necessary. If I stood like the grieving one, you would immediately know what it is. So it would help if in my solos I use the concept this is just a small example, the concept of presence in a small way. And I further thought I could work on it by, especially since narrative had started playing a more important role in Bharatanatyam as time went by. In the olden compositions, narrative never had such a big space. You know the Sthala Puranam and the narrative, different ways. It's like singing a raga with different sangadis. Now I have to flash back to music when I talked about this because I left a very important point. When I had such good musicians, I thought we do a lot of Sanchari Baba, whether it's along emotive lines or whether it's along narrative lines. But the habit at that point in time, the 70s, was singing Sangadis. You probably think of 16 Sangadis and sing them two times each and then go back to singing them and come back. So I was just thinking, in music, the musician has so much scope. Where in Neraval or delineation of ragam or tadam, there is so much variety. If our Sanchari Bhava can be enriched, why not use Neraval in dance music? And that is when Neraval in dance music was ever introduced. It was not introduced earlier. It came in later, and it was Sethuraman sir, Madurai Sethuraman, my husband Visweswaran and myself, who used Neraval. We tried it to the extreme, to the extent that, if I had 10 kacheris in the 10 days in the Margari festival, I would make my husband sing Charukesi, I would make Sethuraman sing Hussaini, because Sethuraman's delineation of Hussaini in Neraval was superior, and my husband's delineation in Charukesi was superior. So develop your sensitivity to that extent, though nowadays we're very happy even if we get a musician for kacheris. Very happy. They're all abroad all the time, and here we are, having trained everybody, still training. So this concept of Neraval, we introduced that concept of Neraval, and then அப்படியே வந்து, of course, Ragam delineation, and then Tanama introduced பண்ணி, we did it. At that time, if I think back, I'm sharing this with you because even if it's good, you see, people will criticize if it's something new. But then you must have conviction that it works. You must have studied it so much and made it your own that you could stand up and vouch for it. There will be criticism, but time is the best tester. Now today, everybody is singing Neraval. Everybody is singing Tanam. Everybody is using Ragam. Why? It's not for me. It's for everybody. It's for the entire world. So, Neravangar concept introduced Panninona, there was so much criticism. And இப்படிலாம் பாடக்கூடாதா இன்னமா, even now sometimes there's not every Nattavanar or every doyen in the field is open-minded. They accept பண்றவா சில பேர் தான் இருப்பார், like this parampara. அது வந்து it brought so much beauty to the performance, because அங்க Neraval, இங்க நாட்டியம், people used to say it truly became one. And that was when dance and music came together as one. Nada Brahman and Natya Brahman. What is the job? To unite, to come together, seeking the Parabrahman, and finally surrendering to the Parabrahman. Let us not use big words, attaining the Parabrahman. That Parabrahman will always be there, will come down to us and bless us. So I had gone into theatre, and then I suddenly realized that this was an important point I should have shared. And in theatre, we talked about presence, how coming and standing there, does that not itself create an idea of who the character is? So why not push the possibility of the human body further? And I was also looking towards group productions besides solo, because this becomes very relevant in group productions and fairly relevant to solo productions. Because of this, we can reach further. Suddenly become giddy. I have fluctuating sugar. I'm sorry. I may pause once or the other. I'll take the water. I had already, in the Bharatanatyam costume, discarded a lot of jewelry. In fact, na period, Talasaman was a must, Chandram Suryan was a must, Natte, Besari, Bullaku was a must. Rendu haramgal, sometimes even moonu haram were a must. Nariya Poo was a must. I still remember my Arangetram, Rajalakshmi teacher, it was at Calcutta. So my Kanakambaram flowers were flown from Chennai for my performance. And then she was very insistent, you must keep so many flowers, you must wear a tilakam like this and everything. And I had to give in. But then I'd never been one for dressing up too much. I've come for practice, for my class in practice costume. I'm very comfortable like this, and I think that's what matters. So all this jewelry, what I felt, took away from the abhinaya on my face. Some people look beautiful when they wear all that jewelry. Sudharani would come as Rajamohini, I would come as the Korakti, and she would say, Chitra, na hair stand da. நீ வந்து அழகாக சிம்பிளாக போட்டுட்டு வர, இது எனக்கு நல்லா இருக்கேன், அது அவளுக்கு நல்லா இருக்கும். But I had already started discarding all these extra things and trying to make the dancer communicate more. And everything would just be complementary to the dancer. The 23rd chapter of the Natya Shastra, which talks about Aharya, is not just about costume and the 4 types of Aharyas and everything, but some people, I'm sure none of you do, think is all that exists in that chapter. But it talks about the entire setting, how the musicians are dressed, how the jewelry is used, how the placement is. Talks about makeup. I mean, it is so mind-blowing, and you can just be so inspired by it. But what is the essence of what he's trying to say? Just following that doesn't mean just exactly doing what was done, but also carrying the spirit forward. He also showed how one could be used for something else. And I always remember that from that chapter. I used to wear my armband as a necklace. Then I used to wear my kulusu on my waist. I used to do all sorts of things, but it looked good, and I never got bored. So what is it? What is in this thing? What is another lesson is the dance is the most important thing. That is the gem, and everything else is the setting. So if the setting is so ornate, the poor gem gets lost. ஒரு வைரம் மினுக்கணும்னா அதுக்கு செட்டிங் டெலிகேட்டாக அழகாக இருக்கணும். அதே மாதிரி place it against not cream but blue velvet. Then it looks, sparkles more. All these things matter. What is that blue velvet? It is our backstage. It is our curtain at the back. What is the setting? It is how we place everything on the stage, how the musicians set. All that has gone a long way nowadays, but all this is not something that was not thought of by our elders. So I thought, yes, I started discarding a lot of jewelry in my solo performances. But my aim was finally to be able to bring a person onto stage, the character, and without vesham, without creedam, without the costume, in a normal sari, I wanted the audience to be able to say what character that is. So it was working on the body. Will you come? Yeah, because you may have to show. We're very badly documented. Let's not talk about our past. That is their documentation was great. But you know, my generation of dancers, we don't have proper videos. We didn't record. We probably scribbled our choreographies in notes. So we have a few things that I want to share with you, and would like to share a little extract from a TV recording. It was SPC in the 80s. And this is a little extract from Srinivasa Thiruvenkatamudaya, where you know many of these points that I have just talked about. Just the play on the word Jagannatha. And then change of character through stance and look. Not one character turn round as in Kathak and go there, and another character and swirl back as in Kathak and come here, but just with a change of glance, the way you hold your body, the presence, whether it is Mahabali or whether it is the Vamana. It is the body which speaks, not just the face. By body, it means the entire body. And that is what I was working towards. So the first example is from the solo. Mange manadale Jagannatha 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 Jagannatha
Jagannatha, 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 Jagannatha,
These were some of my first works, earlier works. Another thing that I felt I could take from theatre was the understanding of the use of space. Bharatanatyam was, as said there earlier, and even later, as Bharatanatyam, was conceived in a corridor format. What was the reason? There was a reason. Again, context. Don't just talk through your hats. None of us have the right to do that because everything is a contextual reference point. It was done in the Garbhagriha. It was done in the Sannidhanam. It was done in the presence. Even in the big கோயில் தஞ்சாவூர் பெரிய கோயிலில் பிரகதீஸ்வரா கோவிலில் இவ்வளோதான் இடம் இருக்கும். லிட்டில் பிட் மோர். அங்கே 11 feet high சிவலிங்கம். பட் இங்கே there would only be that much more. And you could only be dancing in this format. Where was all this? No. So, naturally it developed like that. But I'm sure, even if it had moved out, there would have been even traditionally a step taken. But now today, you see, so I thought the usage of space, just using this corridor format, I could enrich it because, especially in a stage like the NCPA stage, or a semicircular, I don't know who thought of it. Because the first time I danced, and this was perhaps the second performance after it was built, you know, after I did the Brahmari, I didn't know which side to face. I got so totally confused. Brahmari, wobble, wobble, where are you going to stop? You don't know how there are so many people who are excluded from the dance. Because mind you, unless you see eye to eye, I mean rather you look eye into eye with the audience, you can't create rasa. Chumma engyo sky la pathunda doesn't work. I have to connect with you. I have to connect with you. I have to connect. It's important. So when that is there, this whole, except the center too, everybody feels left out. So you don't create that rasa. You don't have the raganuga. And that raganuga is the first step towards this raganuga. So it used to be I said again, comfort zone. Let me move out of my comfort zone. Let me take tiny steps, not big steps. Then I'll be thrown off from the field. So then, as I studied theatre and went back to my studies of theatre, theatre was also one of my subjects in college. So you have so many different types of theatre. Of course, all that is there, folk theatre, Elizabethan theatre, Greek theatre, Allah Mandala. But there is something very important called the unities. The unities of space and time. And in the way we use the stage, we can suggest past and present. We can suggest past, present, future. We can suggest here and there, all that by use of space. And to that, if you harness lighting, even better. So, unities of space and time, very important. Again, this is the horizontal, the obvious. Then you have the vertical, obvious. But if you take this as a circle and have the two axes, how many angles are there in between and how many cross angles? So I'm not asking, I never wanted to just compose dance as angles as it can become so mechanical. Just being aware of space, being aware that you can energize space with your dance. And again, you have vertical movements, you have horizontal movements, you have circular movements, you have circular movements too. It's not just this, it is also this, because this is like a cube. So I started using this space very, very aesthetically, without taking away from the spirit of Bharatanatyam. And even in a solo, it used to be nice to be able to, for a particular place, it creates more, it is more charming. So I really became conscious of space and, using the space and realizing I have to energize it. And what is energy? Energy is positivity that the art form gives us. And on the positivity, Vardhike, use the space to the maximum possible. And I always used to have, one part of me reining me in, and I had a very critical mother and father. So that, if I charge, they'll just pull me back. It's okay, fine. Don't charge, don't go away, go around the stage for this in your excitement. Dance should teach you control as much as it should teach you expression. So it is a lesson that has helped me throughout my life in my ups and downs. To control is extremely important, because then expression becomes more spontaneous and more beautiful. With theatre also came lighting, but before that, what other tools did I use to strengthen this tool? Where from did I get more inspiration? This is a body, and we see the body sculpted in so many wonderful forms in our temples in India. How beautiful each piece of sculpture is, how aesthetic, how proportionate, what philosophical depth, what reflection of our thought process, of our nation, of our civilization, religious, spiritual, at all. I had always been fascinated by the sculptures. I was totally awed watching them, and I was already stirred, and I would keep thinking every time, imagine the dedication of those sculptors to stay away from their families in the middle of nowhere for 12 years, where Khajuraho was concerned, for so many years in each case, sculpting. And what was it all for? It was all for God's sake. Nothing was for art's sake in our country. Because everything has been for God's sake. So here, all this most beautiful sculptures there, awe-inspiring. And what was intricate detail. Look at Belur and Halibir. What intricate detail. That little Vinayakar in Dharasuram, what intricate detail. What about Kumbakonam? What about Chidambaram? What about the North Indian frescoes, Ajanta, Ellora? There is so much wealth, richness. But, what is this? Oh, I can't read, it's okay. We'll do this, I'll come to that. So, so much richness, and then, what happened was, like most of us, sleep, eat, drink, think, dream, everything dance, everything art. And we knew no life besides dance and music and theatre. And both of us, whenever we travel, it was very lucky. We used to be traveling all around the world, and we'd go to museums, we'd go to archaeological sites, we'd go to concerts, we'd listen to jazz, we'll go to classical performance, we'll go to Broadway, everything. Our performances, like a busman's holiday. It was such fun because we used to travel and the weather was so good we could perform and at the same time take in the culture of all places. Nowadays, unfortunately, dancers go, they perform, they come back. But when you soak in the culture and ethos of another people, it enriches you and you find parallels, you find things which are different, you find similarities, and you realize that only two types of people, good people and bad people. And there are good people everywhere. And let us all join hands. So what happened was, one of these tours, it was to Europe, and we had gone to a museum. It's in Berlin, and I was looking at all the pieces of sculpture, and there was a contemporary, the place which displayed the contemporary art. So I said, okay, let me go and see. As I was looking, this is the work of Henry Moore. He's a contemporary sculptor. Now, the question is not, is this beautiful or not beautiful? To some it may be beautiful, to some it may be ugly, to some it may mean something, to some it may not mean anything. It's like the story of that elephant and the four blind men. One thought it was a snake, one thought it was a pillar, one thought it was a wall, one thought it was a rope. So each person, they have something else to take away from it. For me, what struck me was the total unadorned quality of the human body. Not one piece of adornment. ஒரு வஸ்திரம் இருக்கா, ஒரு நகை இருக்கா, ஒரு எதே adornment இருக்கா, nothing. And I stood there looking at it and I realized this is my answer to my dream. If in sculpture they can show the power of the human body, the unadorned human body, let me work towards bringing that out in the dancing body. And that way, we stepped further. At the same time, I met Mr. K.K. Habbar, our very own K.K. Habbar, artist, and his line drawings left a very deep impression about me. Just a line, but so telling. So cannot the human body also with minimal vesham, provided we enhance it to becoming a holistic tool of communication, will we not be able to succeed? And that is when I went into totally discarding the Vesham, even from my groups. I used to have 1 or 2 Veshams sometimes, but most of the time there wouldn't be Vesham. And there is one comment I cherish very deeply. I'm not much of a film goer, but I have respect for some of the very great actors and cinematographers. Mammootty was on the flight with us to Trivandrum. My husband, as usual, very friendly. I'm the one who steps back. He would always make friends with everyone and would be joking all the time. And he went to Mammootty. He knew him. And he said, Iniki Chitra and group, when the students la Panchali Pandra, will you come? He didn't think he would come, but Mammootty came. At the end of the show, he came up on stage and said, I don't know who directed this production. I had directed it, but that's aside. Who has directed this production? I did not see a single woman on stage today. And mind you, everyone was wearing just a stylized podave and one cotton davani, idu mari cotton da kattindirundha. And he said, I could just see the characters. I said, this is success. Because somebody totally unrelated and who is a great artist came and told us that. So when I decided to use this, it was from sculpture and that contemporary sculpture. I wasn't doing the Karanas. I wasn't doing any of the poses which have been researched and being done so beautifully. But this was looking for a way. And it was my study of sculpture and painting, because they are all subjects to me. I love studying about them. Gave me a sense of direction and I was able to take it forward. Now around that time there was a gentleman called Na Muthuswamy. He was a great creative genius, and he was reviving the Terukuttu tradition in Tamil Nadu, not the crass cinematic version, but something very beautiful. He evolved it to such a great extent, and the way those bodies worked. So he came to me and said, Chitra, I could dance lighting a batti. I want to work. And I would like my boys to work with you all. And then I said, we will work with you on Kuthu movement. Adele mainly on the Modala Muthuva Nana, we worked on it. And then I won't say I taught it, I transferred it to my students. As a transference, it's not the teacher and the taught, but it's a transference. It holds, there is a link between the two. So here, I was looking at, that Panchali bit was from Bharatiya's Panchali. I wanted something would cleanly identify the Kauravas from the Pandavas. So, Mudra irukku, but how can we project that character? It's like Shri Mudrana idu Pushpatha Puchunda Pannarde is there for every Stri. Unless the body shows it, idu kekai into ipudi in the body stance theatre, the presence kondu vandhadan theatre theriya. அதே இது சீதையா அது அந்த பாடி பேசினாதான் அதே ஹஸ்தம் takes on meaning. Meaning to the hasta comes through the use of the body. So அதெல்லாம் great dancers instinctive-ஆலாம் கூட பண்ணியிருக்காது. But then the horizon of the dance is increasing. Different things are being done. So அந்த வெறும் முத்திரைனால காமிக்க முடியாது. Bodies என்ன work பண்ணணும். So I was very inspired by the Kuthu movements. Kuthu movements are low-flung movements. எல்லாம் this is the average, and a big stretching your legs and the movement. எனக்கு என்ன தோணித்துனா, if we think of the Kauravas as evil, not think they are evil, they are more earthy, they are more crass, they don't rise, they don't have those better qualities. The evil, conniving, treacherous characters. I studied the Kuthu movement and made it my own, in the sense through osmosis, no cut, copy, paste, and reworked it to show the Panchapadavas. Sorry, the Dushta Chatushta, evil ones. What did I do for the Pandavas? Did I put them on stilts and say, stilt dance munda, the mari put them on stilts and make them look, here I've gone down with 4 cart to the floor. Let me make them wear stilts and do the stilt dance and say that they are better characters. For that I use lighting. Because Tapur Senoda idu irundhathu, and the influence irundhathu, and the lighting. Oh, let me get to it. Don't show it before. நான் சொன்னப்பறம் நீ அதை காணும். ஏன்னா நான் வந்து போய் வேறு எதையும் சொல்லுவேன். உனக்கு என்ன தெரியும், நான் அதை பார்க்க மாட்டேன். நான் அதுக்கு தான் நீ ரிமைண்டர் போடுறேன், மறந்துடுவேன். எனக்கு இங்கேருந்து தெரியறதுன்னு நினச்சியா கண்ணு? கேட்டராக்டுமா கண்ணில் ஒன்றுமே தெரியல. So I had this Tapur sense influence. I had started using lighting in solo. They again criticize solo. Why do you need lighting? Why have you to come and light when you start with a spot and end with a spot? It can all be white all the time. Why do you need lighting? Why not? Why not? Don't take away from the dance. Don't make it dramatic, like I said. Don't have all sorts of rays and smoke coming and all that. But there is something, no? For instance, in Ardhanarishwara, lighting guys have really... I remember the days I carried pars for Murugan, the famous Chennai Murugan who does lighting, Krishnan's son, from London and from Delhi. I carried it for him. But he worked with me on my performances. And today he is a par excellence, because but again he also sometimes does too dark, I say. Murugan, the too dark line, I want the artist's face, abhinayam illana, you make it dark. But then generally we all have fairly decent abhinaya. So in that, it does make a difference. When Ardhanarishwara, you have that form, and adile you have Shiva and Parvati. Shiva oda side kaamikarchela, and the ஒரு கோடு மாதிரி இருக்கும், provided the dancer stands in the proper spot. அது வேற. அவள் சொல்லுவா, மார்க் பண்ணினா அவள் அங்கே போய் நின்றுட்டாம்பா. Dancers have to be, we have to be. That's why Ananda Kumara Swami said, you can never forget yourself totally. You have to be totally conscious of what is happening. So, அங்கே வந்து நின்னா இந்த ஒரு சைடு ரெட்டு வரிச்சை, முத்திரை இது வரிச்சை, the other side amber, red, amber. The two characters kadam mingle achina inna gettom avladhan. We just want more people to watch classical dance, that's all. That is the only objective. So now to come to the slide, that this is that particular two dancers was Samagana Lole being lit. We presented it at the opera in France, the Bhakta and Ambar. So there was a light just in the beginning, so that they shot that. Not in the dance, it wasn't so distracting. go on to the next one. So I spoke about lighting influencing. See, why I'm sharing all this is it's not enough we just once learn about lighting and say we have so many different types of lights. We have spots, we have powers, we have we have intelligent lights. There are so many types of lights. It's not enough if we know that we must know how to use them. It is so important. And what helped me in the usage was not lighting itself, it was painting. So it is the influence of painting and what I sought for in painting. This is a work of, I think, Renoir, isn't it? Yes. And I think we have one of Cézanne also. These are the Impressionist painters of Europe. See, I had always been fascinated by the play of light trickling through. So the play of light, you see, they stripped the canvas of dark, dull colors, the old Dutch school of painting. They just stripped it and brought in sunlight. So what was in my mind was lighting veche or impressionist painting inga create pannidala. Because anga terukuttu oda lendi evolve panni or language of the body vandade. Inga more upright people and their comparatively. And again, the filtering light would show their nobility. So it was a scene created not just with Hasta and Mudra and Mukhabhinaya. It was a scene where everything mattered, and it matters, and in this body has to become the tool of expression, of holistic expression. And it is studying the other art forms and making something of that part of your own that gives you satisfaction, it gives you joy, it gives you a purpose in life. So, Cézanne, yeah. It was Monet, it wasn't Cézanne, isn't it? Yeah, Monet. Then, you see the light filtering through. These are all just slides that we picked up. I will now share with you a small video, because this is a scene from Panchali. I have been talking about the body language evolving. Unfortunately, the scene where the Pandavas walk in and the Kauravas walk in, that has got corrupted. It was an old video, அதெல்லாம் போச்சு. கொஞ்சம் இருக்கு. அந்த கேம் ஆஃப் டைஸ் ஒரு பிட் மாத்திரம் அது போட்டு காமிக்கிறேன். And you will see the elements of how the body language, I could push it further, how I could bring in the lighting and the concept from painting into recreating the scene. And of course, the Mukhabhinaya, Hastavinaya and everything. And the dancers' commitment, passion for what they do, whatever you teach, whatever you learn, whatever you search for, if you don't have passion, nothing works. And if you think that if one thinks we have reached the peak, we have not. It is always the little done, and it's always the undone worst. And I think this journey will go on till my last breath, because there's always more to know. There is always a peak above you. And I will share this at a couple of other points. Vishwesh composed this music for this. There's so many types of human characters one can show. But what about the animal kingdom? And my search for that began when in my production on Ganga, which again was put to music by Viswesh. It's Vishwesh's voice in this, though it's even the Srinivasa was his voice. That's why I especially shared those with you. And what running nose. Just give me a moment. So, I had a scene in Pravaha. That was the story of the Ganga, which again became to me the story of a soul on earth with different stops and different learnings, different imbibing, a different giving. You never forget your source, you never forget your goal. But along the way, you're young, you imbibe, you take in from the tributaries. As you grow older, you share, you give, like the Ganga does in the rice pool of our country. And finally, you slow down in the Sundarbans, like we all do, like I am. And finally, you reach the ocean, become one with the ocean, the Sagara, the ultimate cosmos. So this had a deeper philosophical intent, but we can't give philosophy alla the mari romba lecture kurtala. You need to present it in a way which is palatable. Otherwise, don't expect people. That's why, but do not ever, I've always told myself, do not ever compromise. That has to be our motto. Never compromise, stride forward, create new things, find things new for yourself, but don't forget yours, the spirit of what you represent. So, animals in the Sundarbans, we had to show so many animals like alligator and snake and the Bengal tiger and whatnot. Of course, we know elephant is Gajamukha, how you show it. We know Simhamukha. It's not as though we don't. We know how to show a deer. We know how to show a snake. We know all these things. It's not as though we don't know it. It's there. It's already there. But then there's one more teacher to me, which is all important because it's Prakriti. Prakriti is Shakti. And Shakti is the greatest teacher of it all. I do not look to any human being for postures. I do not look to any color combinations. I don't look for color combinations among saris and clothes. I look at nature and I get it because there's nothing like that. I don't look for grace in the way the next dancer is bending. I look at the creeper out of the window because there is no greater teacher than nature. So I said, okay, I looked into Terukuthu and lighting and everything, developed it so far. Let me now look at nature for the animal kingdom. The first thing that struck me was, irukku namba gajagamana irukku. We have the gatis of all the animals, which is great that it has been recorded and it is being interpreted in different ways also. That is also there. But here, it's sort of like, I was always confused. Depiction of, say, a snake or a depiction of let's take a tiger. Addikadi will do tiger and lion. But why is it, I always used to think, why is it every dancer is widening his or her eyes and doing a line like that? Which animal belonging to the cat category widens its eyes? They all only have these cat's eyes. Just look at nature. We can't say that is wrong because nature is is doing it. Similarly, in the Pambu dance, I put role pannuva. Aurora told me that when he introduced the Pambu dance, he was inspired by the Karanas to give that movement. And instead, the rippling nature of the snake, that vertebrae illada ஒரு living being, and it's sliding and gliding. Instead, we roll our hands and just keep our very, very tight to show the tail. Ayyo pava, the vertebrae illadade, aduk vertebrae valandu stiffied up. So each animal has its character. It's not only Khandita Naika who is a character or Dhirodhara who has a character. Here, animal kum character irukku. So, and the animals of that and the area, we Sundarbans kaamikanamna, what I decided was sit and observe Zugu pordu. At that time I had gone to England on a visit. Vipsanate Zoo idukave poitu ukandittu vande. Because to see them, these movements, they're so beautiful. Animal Planet, National Geographic, all these things, very good teachers. So, we worked on the human body. I first worked on my own body, then the transference happened to my girls. And for 2-3 months, we were only gliding around like snakes and charging like tigers and striding like lions, understanding the character and the spirit of each living being, making it your own and sharing it. Now, I will show a small instance from our production Sneha, which is a terribly bad recording. It is probably but the only one we have. In this, one of the stories, this in fact deals with social, how we can help society, which is Vasudeva Kutumbakam is basically the end objective. But before that, of course, there is we used Kanchi Paramacharya's Maitrim Bhajataha, and we used the lyrics where Shri, you retuned it because it had to be big. We used a lot of music instruments and everything. The thing was, there's one story. Do we look at the past and we only read them as stories, or do we try to apply the spirit of it in our lives? Was the theme. So, 4 older stories, Puranathilendra, we projected it in how the spirit could be applied to our life today. So, in that, there was the story of Jimutavahana, the prince, who, in order to save his friend, who is a Naga, because there was a fight between the Nagas and Garuda, and the mother was, each day one Naga was to be sacrificed to Garuda. So in the mother and child Vara, and this son Naga is to be sacrificed. But his friend is the prince Jimutavahana, and with his magical powers he transforms himself into a snake. So you've seen Jimutavahana as a snake, Garuda carrying the snake in its beak, Garuda pecking at Jimutavahana, and Jimutavahana almost, Jimutavahana passing on. And please note that when Jimutavahana has been carried by the beak of Garuda, the body is hanging so lifelessly. It is as difficult to bring life into a piece of wood as it is to make a living human being lifeless. So there you will see the rise, the flying motion, and Jimutavahana. I will conclude with one piece, but just before that, I would like to say in conclusion, it is very important to search, to research, to discover, to imbibe, to create from the allied art forms. It is then only that symbiosis happens, oneness happens, and it can be in the spirit of Bharata, of Bharatvarsha, of the Sanatana Dharma. But equally important is the necessity to assess your own work. Assess, reassess. You see, when you first create something, it's like your own baby. It's so precious. It's so wonderful. You will feel everything is so beautiful about that baby. It enchants. Its voice is lovely. Its face is lovely. Its features are lovely. But then, this is your baby. So you're right to feel that way. Everything is wonderful. You worked on it. You've probably worked on it for the equal 9 months that the mother has worked on you. But then here you have this baby. But you're so blinded by that bond. It's very important to work on detachment. The detachment, but that comes with age slowly. But then one way to do it is to leave it. You've created it, you do it. Then after some period of time, you re-look it. You look at it afresh. You reassess. You revisit. You research. You recreate. And then you realize it's like churning of butter. When you churn butter, the butter which is bhakti is given to Krishna. So here when you churn, finally the best of it comes out. So it's very, very important to reassess, recreate, revisit, be detached about your work. Don't think I have done it, because one of the biggest things in this country is the I doesn't exist where art is concerned. I will take you back to a little incident this was in Italy. I had been sent by the government of India for a folk dance. Now, just look at them. Sent a classical dancer for a series of folk dance festivals. But we all were there, and every day, everything would finish by 7 o'clock. I would be sitting with the Padiriyar or the priest in the town square, small little towns and villages. I didn't know Italian, he didn't know English. I had a dictionary, so I would point and then he would point and we'd converse. But very important conversation. He said, why is it that in none of your in Indian history, why is it you don't know which sculptor sculpted a particular piece? You do not know which painter painted a particular mural. I said, sir, please forgive me, but in India, it is totally different. Art is not for just art's sake, not to titillate, to attract, to satisfy. Art is for God's sake. And that surrender can only happen if the aham is wiped out. Life is brief when you look at how long art is. I have miles to go before I sleep. And with that, I will share a very favorite piece of mine. I will do it in the old Paddhati. Even today, I don't teach my students Abhinaya standing up. They all have to sit. So I will sit and perform it and maybe be able to share with you all how expressive if one has made a holistic tool of expression out of this human body, how expressive that body can be even in sitting posture. So, Nandini, the Kunj. On a lighter side, I think all of you can hear me. Yes. My husband used to have a name for these mics. We call them Maika Suran. No word of mouth. When you are listening to beautiful music, you will have all sorts of noises. And when you need it to work, I just wanted to say something. But fortunately, they took it up because I didn't need it. And also, like all technical objects, what we need when we need them don't work. Is laptop just so we are playing it quite through the phone. And each time the musician has sung it differently. But I've just heard it once, I don't know what I'm going to do. But the thing is, when you have your grammar base very strong, it's only when grammar is strong that creativity gets slow. So you have to make a grammar. Even all this pushing the body and the further exploration of the possibility of the human body can be done if that grammar is strong.
ಜಗದೋದ್ಧಾರಣ ಹಾಡಿಸಿದಳೆ ಶೋದೆ ಜಗದೋದ್ಧಾರಣ ಹಾಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಜಗದೋ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಜಗದೋ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಜಗದೋ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಜಗದೋ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಜಗದೋದ್ಧಾರಣ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಜಗದೋದ್ಧಾರನ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಜಗದೋದ್ಧಾರನ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಜಗದೋದ್ಧಾರನ ಮಗನೆಂದು ತಿಳಿಯುತ್ತ 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 ಮಗುಗಳ ಮಾಣಿಕ್ಯನ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಮಗುಗಳ ಮಾಣಿಕ್ಯನ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಮಗುಗಳ ಮಾಣಿಕ್ಯನ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಜಗದೋದ್ಧಾರನ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಅಣೋರಣೀಯನ ಮಹತೋ ಮಹೀಯನ ಅಣೋರಣೀಯನ ಮಹತೋ ಮಹೀಯನ ಅಪ್ರಮೇಯನ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಅಪ್ರಮೇಯನ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳ್ ಯಶೋದೆ ಅಪ್ರಮೇಯನ 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 അപ്രമേയന അപ്രമേയന
Sharda Ganeshan's daughter, Nataraju Gopal's niece, Shishya, Janaki's daughter-in-law, you're of a very own Mumbai and Chennai finance, Gurumani's granddaughter. I'm so pleased to see Shri, all of you. It's thank you for making it possible for me to read in my experience.
I just sit down for a few moments. I want to I think among all those who are gathered here, I'm the senior most in age, senior most dancer, and a person who has seen Chitraka as a young dancer when I was a teenager. So somehow I felt I must share some thoughts with so many youngsters who have gathered here. When we listen to such doins, we realize, and when they share their life experience, what actually makes learning, their learning is their experience. It's often said, experience is the best schoolmaster. And I think the way Chitraka has assimilated so many aspects of our artistic heritage. You know, when she spoke about Renoir and Monet, I was taken back to my days of doing it in Stella Maris. But it does excite you when you see a Rembrandt painting and you know how just this figure comes out. But to apply that in your own production is something that was amazingly strung together. She showed how every aspect of her, I don't know whether I would say study or her experience of what she saw, got assimilated. So this is a message for all the youngsters. So don't be, So the kind of, when she kept saying, chew it, assimilate it, that assimilation is what comes out. And we saw so many of those clippings when Akka was talking about, some of us never have any documentation of whatever we've performed. And when the video came and then some of them got recorded, they also got corrupted in due course. And so we've all lost. My Natya Rangam and all that went. Somebody said they'll clean it, went off. But it was so enriching a lecture. All that we saw today, you can take it into your own learning. When you look at a sculpture or a painting, what she saw in the painting was the grace of the line. You know, when we used to learn dance, we didn't have any of these video systems. So we used to make stick figures, and the stick figure would have the hip and the hand. The hand would go with an arrow showing in which direction it would move. And those stick figures would be like line drawings for us. It used to be such a beautiful experience. So when I heard Chitraka, so many memories came back. And one point I must tell is, when I had gone under Paduka and my very close friend, you all know, Sundari was a senior student. Sundari and I used to be, going for all the dance performances. And one of the occasions when you were performing, Akka, and Paduka couldn't come, she said, both of you must go and see. He said, Akka, you also come. She said, I can't come today. And the best part of this girl, she said, is that she covers space so beautifully. You mentioned about space, and that was one point she said, this is something very refreshing to see. She covers space beautifully, imbibing Vadyar style. She used to call Ramya Pillai Vadyar, and so she said, go and watch. And of course, it was in an open ground, Akka. I don't remember where, but it was beautiful. We just went and saw your performance. Yes, you moved around so beautifully. And there are so many things, but I want to share this kind of learning. I must thank Chembur Fine Arts for having invited Akka to share her experience. We've heard so many lectures talking about, connecting dance with painting and things like that. But it was not just that. It was her experience of those various arts, her experience of music, her experience of theatre, and how she assimilated that into her performance. Thank you so much, Akka, for this absolutely enriching lecture. Every moment of your sharing has been a moment of learning for us. Thank you so much.
On behalf of the Fine Arts Society, I take immense pleasure in thanking Srimati Chitra Visweswaran ji for accepting our invitation and giving us such a wonderful lecture, and which was enjoyed. And I'm sure the dancers have a lot to learn from the lecture, and for us non-dancers, I think we will be better rasikas from after this lecture, I'm sure. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you all for coming here.